All right, welcome everyone to, I think, the last session of the day, and this is Envisioning a Path to Better Community Farmers Markets across New Jersey. My name is Renata Blumberg. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Nutrition and Food Studies at Montclair State University. This is
Newcomb. I'm with Communities Revolutionizing Open Public Spaces, or CROPS. We're in Atlantic County. We're a small nonprofit organization. We run farmers markets. We grow food in several municipalities, and co-op tour and education program and paid internship.
And so we'd just like to start with introductions. So why don't we start with you?
Sure. My name is McKeage. I'm from the Homestead in Cape May County. We have a 15-acre farm. We have a 5-acre garden. We do a bunch of farmers markets. We have a very local home delivery service, and we sell to a couple of small local restaurants. So we have pretty diverse stuff.
And if you guys could just tell everybody, like, whether you're a farmer's market or you're a farmer, how many years you've been doing it, number of farmers markets that you either facilitate or number of farmers markets in a season you participate in.
Sure. So we're heading into our 12th season. In the summertime, we do 7 farmers markets, and in the wintertime, we do 1. We do 1 year round, and then the other 6 are seasonal. But the home deliveries are also year round, and so is the wholesale.
Hi everyone, I'm Tracy Lerman. I'm here with GrowNYC, visiting your state. Thank you for having me. GrowNYC does a lot of things, but relevant to this conversation, we run 45 farmers markets in New York City, and we also run a variety of other food access initiatives. We have farm stands, which is a slightly different model. We accept all of the different currencies issued by New York City and the federal government, and some insurance companies. And my role actually is not on the farmers market side, although I do work with them a lot. I actually run our Farmer Assistance Program, which provides training and technical assistance to aspiring farm business owners and vendors at our Greenmarket and through our wholesale division. And GrowNYC has been running farmers markets for 50 years, so been doing it a long time. And what was the last question you had? Oh, okay.
I'm George Asprocolas. I am a vegetable farmer in Monmouth County, Millstone Township. I farm approximately 40 acres of vegetables. We do 12 to 15 different farmers markets a week. I do not have a home stand. It's all what I call tailgate farmers markets, community farmers markets. I'm also president of Tri-County Farmers Co-op in Hightstown, where we have 30 and 40 farmer members there that come in and market their wares at Tri-County.
Hi everybody, my name is Gabriel Scilliano. I own and operate Abe's Acres Farm in East Windsor, Mercer County. Although I am in a different town and county, I'm about a mile and a half from him. He's right around the corner. I do, during the season, right now we do 2 weekly farmers markets, and we also do a CSA and a small amount of wholesale. Less wholesale since the beginning of the pandemic, unfortunately, but it is what it is. This is year 9, year 10, who remembers? That's how long I've been doing it.
Hi, I'm Cirkus. I just have to say, having been in this space for about 15 years, becoming like all of a sudden I'm like an old timer in this space. The food system in New Jersey is having a moment. So really, for what today looks like, as opposed to what we've looked at over the past 15 years, it's really significant. So kudos to all of you for being in the room today. So I run the West Windsor Community Farmers Market, which is a 20-year-old 501c3. We're all a bunch of crazy community members who make this farmers market happen. We run year-round, May to Thanksgiving weekly, and twice a month through the winter. Alice and Akbay with Snapping Turtle is one of our farmers as well. But through the winter, we're hosting 16 of our 18 farmers. So plus anywhere between 20 and 25 vendors with value-added products. I've been involved in a few different farmers markets around the state and revitalized the Old Shrine Farmers Market for a few years. I've worked in Farm to School state level. So slugging produce everywhere I go is really what I do. So yeah. Oh yeah, and in my spare time, I do sales full time for Zone 7, which is a local foods distributor. So.
Can everybody hear everyone?
Do you want me to ask them to turn theirs down a little?
Yeah, I think that would be, I mean, I don't wanna turn ours up and then compete with them, so.
Are we supposed to be using that?
I mean, I don't think we need it.
Oh, this room's pretty small.
I don't know.
I think it's the recording.
Yeah.
Are we supposed to be turning it on?
No, I think the camera's on. Right there.
Looks like it's on.
Alright, so
Oh,
we'll
sure.
use
Put it on early.
We'll use the mic.
here on out.
We will use them now.
Sorry about that. Okay, so our first question is, what challenges limit the capacity of the community farmers market sector to support farm viability, especially for new and emerging farmers?
And we're just gonna do this. Whoever wants to answer a question, please respond.
Could you repeat the question? I couldn't really hear.
What challenges limit the capacity of the community farmers market sector to support farm viability, especially for new emerging farmers? So what challenges have you confronted as market managers, as farmers? What challenges are specific to New Jersey?
Guess what would start off? I guess one of the biggest challenges is just the cost of doing business in New Jersey. With labor, if you can find labor, it's very expensive. Fuel, irrigation supplies, I mean, everything it's not really cost efficient to be a farmer in New Jersey anymore. I was forced, I've been doing this for 30 some years now, and it's one of the first years I had to almost raise prices on everything across the board, just to try to cover expenses, and I don't like doing that. For new farmers coming into it, I don't know how they can do it. I mean, I'm first generation farmer. I started in 1991. I didn't have land handed to me, equipment handed to me. I had to work for everything that I have right now. And for a new farmer to do that now, I don't know how they can do it. That's a huge, huge challenge.
If I could add to and expound upon what George has said, the barriers to entry, if you're just trying to start farming, let alone trying to sell at farmers markets, are insurmountable for a lot of people now. Land access, as George said, is a lot more difficult than it used to be. What with development continuing as it does, someone inherits 300 acres worth of land, let's say on 33, which happens all the time. They have the option of continuing to farm it, leasing it out to another farmer, or selling it to a developer for millions of dollars and never working again. Which option do you think they're going to take? So land access is a big issue. Access to equipment is a big issue. Supplies are wildly expensive. I mean, even in the last 3 years, even just like basic produce supplies, those little pint-sized boxes that you buy cherry tomatoes in, those have more than tripled in price, for example. Now, as for getting into farmers markets, I can speak to that because I myself was doing that in the last 10 years. I haven't been as well established as George was, back in the day when there were fewer markets. There's been, as Chris said, the New Jersey food system is having its moment. There are a lot of really, really cool projects going on. A lot of small farms growing vegetables organically, sustainably, conventionally, what have you, one way or the other. The market is not totally saturated, but a lot of the established markets are saturated. For example, for me, in order to get into the markets that I'm in now, I had to figure out a way to set myself apart from other people who were growing produce. You're growing produce, you're growing all the same stuff for the most part. Now, setting yourself apart with different value-added products, different other things that kind of get your foot in the door is helpful. But for a lot of farmers just starting out who are trying to go the route of farmers markets, either they have to fight tooth and nail to get into a market that's already established, or they have to try and start their own, or find a group of people to start their own. And that's a whole other animal that I am not the person to speak to about that. That's her. But yeah,
If I could
those are
just,
my-
are
those
you
are my
done?
thoughts
I'm
there.
sorry.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, if I could just add, one of the biggest problems that we saw when we were first trying to get into farmers markets, because we were in the past 10 years we've been trying to get into farmers markets, and luckily we have now. But I will say that if the distributors were removed from the farmers markets, that would make room for at least 3 or 4 new growers who really don't have like the huge amounts of produce, but it would let them get their foot in the door and make some sales and get some experience, and then maybe some drop out, maybe some continue. But eliminating the people that are not actually farmers from the farmers market would make a huge difference in just access to somewhere to sell your stuff.
Nothing's more annoying than seeing someone peeling UPC stickers off of peppers in the back of a truck, unless you're the one who put them there. Yeah. A lot of farmers do buy stuff in, but most of the people I know who are doing it right are buying it in from their neighbors or people they know. They're not buying stuff from Restaurant Supply or like Restaurant Depot or Baldor or whatever, and that's frustrating. It's a slap in the face to people who work their hands to the bone in this business and make pennies on the dollar for what they sell.
So I just wanted to offer from a market operator perspective challenges that we've seen with, I personally don't run the markets. I work with the farmers. And I know perhaps I'm not from New Jersey, so this could be an opportunity, perhaps not, but I know our markets are almost entirely at capacity. We don't really have the opportunity to take new producers in. And some of the most popular markets, like our Union Square market, the opportunity cost for selling in that market is very expensive. To have a market, like to have a booth there for the day, to hire labor, to get your product down to New York City. I don't know if these are challenges that some of the farmers you face, some of the markets are faced, that some of the farmers face in the markets here. And then there's also parking regulations, and New York City is about to impose congestion pricing for lower New York City. So that's a challenge, which could be an opportunity for New Jersey. I don't know. And I think on the opposite side, we have very, very small markets that are 2 or 3 producers, and they just don't really have the critical mass of producers to recruit the amount of, to make it worthwhile for a customer to go there. So I think there is a need to kind of establish that critical mass, build up the consumer demand for it, which, as we learned in the last panel, can be really challenging. Yeah.
So I'll weigh in here on the, I don't need a microphone.
It's for the camera.
Oh, it's for the camera. So I project. So I will say that, the thing I always come back to as a challenge within New Jersey is there are not a lot of resources for farmers markets. So we've all sort of pulled ourselves up by our bootstraps, and those of us who are really passionate about it have become voices and advocates and mentors to other markets. So when somebody calls me, I'll spend an hour on the phone just putting it on the line and telling you what you need to do. But without that resource, there's no, not that we want a real structure, because that's the joy of a farmer's market, right? It's the individual community. It's what you get from that market and what it is for you. It's what it is for the farmers. But it's what are those resources that really come into play? Like, look, if you are in a really food insecure area and there aren't any growers. I mean, I helped open the Greenwood Ave Farmers Market. We had Food Bazaar the first year because we needed tropicals because there were no grocery stores. But then we brought in a farmer the year after and we let the grocer go. So it's that, what's the resale policy? What are those resources that are really there for farmers markets that the managers or the organizers can put into place so that there is some sort of structure to go by? And if there isn't one, that's why you're peeling labels off of. Yeah.
Hi. So quick question. basically speaking to your point, who should provide those resources, like for farmers markets? Like, is that up to nonprofits, state agencies? Do you want other farmers markets to distribute resources like you have? Like, what's the best way to go about this?
So for 15 years, we've tried to figure out how to make a statewide association of farmers market managers, and we really haven't come up with one. The Department of Ag doesn't want to own it. The Farm Bureau, everybody's resources are limited. So cooperative extension. I mean, to me, from today, I see it as a legislator needs to put forth something for an advisory panel for farmers markets in the state, so that some sort of what's happening with the organic advisory panel right now is that the Department of Ag will have to answer to some panel that's appointed that's a rural, suburban, urban farmer, a market manager, a municipality, or a Parks and Rec department that can support it, to come up with some really tangible resources for markets to sort of use as a baseline.
And to add, I know in California they have certified markets that require producers to grow their own product or have regulations around what can be brought in. And our network of 45 markets, we have very strict rules about, if you want to buy something in, you have to get a special permit, you have to label it, and it has to be a certain percentage or less of what you grow. But, I think we are a citywide network of growers, of farmers markets, which is different from what you're describing here.
Can I just ask a question related to the challenges? Because our next question was actually about like what to do, but specifically more about the challenges. Would you say that from the consumer perspective, is the market saturated? I think Gabe, you said that it's not saturated, but the markets are saturated. So where are the places where we could potentially like coordinate or help build more markets? Where is that? Where is that consumer base? Or what were you thinking when you said it's not completely?
So I don't know if necessarily more farmers markets is the answer, because if there's like 4 farmers markets in 4 towns immediately surrounding each other, no one's going to make any money. I know that, which is one of the reasons why coordinating at a statewide level of like market managers talking to each other and figuring out where markets needs to be is pretty important. When I say that when I talk about market saturation, I mean the established markets that have existed for a really long time. For example, the West Windsor Farmers Market. I know Chris has done an incredible job running that market, turned it into the market that it is today. It's one of the best markets in the state, if not the best markets in the state. All, kudos to where kudos is due. But if I, right now said to Chris, hey, I'd like to sell at the West Windsor Farmers Market next season, Chris would politely, and I'm putting words in your mouth, would politely say, like, Gabe, I'm sorry, but there isn't a place for you. There's already enough vegetable farmers, let alone organic, sustainable, preferred growers. Which again, fine, it's not a problem. It's just that's just the case. Like, these a lot of the big established markets have their established vendors.
So how does it happen then? How do you find a market as a farmer, and how can we improve on that?
So, like I said, you need to either set yourself apart in some way where that's not the only thing that you're selling, and talk to all the other farmers at that market to make sure you're not stepping on anyone's toes in a way that's going to come back to bite you, because farmers can't really very well pick up and move stakes, so you don't want to upset anybody. There are opportunities for farmers markets in places that are underserved for that kind of stuff. For example, the Bordentown Farmers Market, which I started at and was one of the first farmers at in was that 2018 or 19? It doesn't matter. Thank you, though. So that was 2019. That was only a few years ago. And it's been a profitable market for the most part. But those are the folks who've been running that market had no guidance whatsoever and nothing to refer to, no group of people to talk to. So they called her, which is what usually happens. That, folks who are trying to start a farmer's market in an area that's underserved will find a market manager or talk to a market manager at an already established market or series of markets and get the download from them. And in order to identify where those places are that could be served by a farmer's market that would be profitable for everybody who's participating, and get the download on how to do it in a way that makes the market successful as a whole and successful for each of the vendors there, would require, again, some communication on a statewide or at least countywide basis. That's
I
my
was just
thought.
gonna say, I think first of all, you didn't tell us you brought your mom, and that's so cute.
Sorry. Yeah.
I think that just
Hi,
speaks
Mom.
to your
That's
point
my mom, Addie. She's right there. Yeah. She's cool.
about the need for something statewide, because like being an organization that does run farmers markets and under-resourced communities, like when we go to our farmers and say, hey, can you take a chance on this market where there's no customer base build up to begin with, we don't get any funding from the municipalities, because what we hear from them is like, well, we already are underfunded as it is, and we're looking for bringing businesses in that can pay like taxes and fees and permit license fees and things like that. Like, we're not getting any support from the local municipality. We're trying to bring in a farmer who needs to make X number of dollars to actually go to a market and create the customer base all in one. Like, again, that would be great if there was a statewide entity that you could go to and say, we really need this in this community.
I'm going to hand this to you in 1 second, but I want to, before we get too far off the topic of buying stuff in, I want to make a clarification. There's a difference between buying in from a distributor like Baldor or Restaurant Depot, or going to a place like Tri-County Co-op and buying from New Jersey farmers, most of whom I know personally and I'm friends with.
Totally.
Like, if I don't grow pumpkins, and I don't, and I'm going to sell pumpkins, which I will, I'm buying them from my neighbor Jay Highland, who grows great pumpkins, and I am
Totally.
happy to sell them as Highland Farm pumpkins, and my customers do not care. They just
Yeah.
want them. But I'm supporting. The dollars are going back into my community to support my
Totally.
local farmers.
And
period.
that's something that we did, was we bought from farmers that we already worked with that were coming to our farmers markets to do a mobile farmers market in a place like Pleasantville or Atlantic City. But we were hyper focused on, like, we were just going to WIC FMNP, or we were just going to senior FMNP, but we were making sure that the profit was still going back to an actual community local farmer. Oh, do we have?
Hello.
I have two questions. One is, at some point within this, if you could talk more about creating and sustaining what you have done, because we're in South Jersey and I know about your farmers market, and it would be amazing if we could do something like that. So, like, what did it take basically to do that? And I understand dedicated community members, but really like some of the actual logistics. And if you could speak to the Tri-State Co-op, is that what it's called? Tri-County Co-op a little bit, and what that process has been like, because that's another topic that we talked about in the session before, and I think it's super interesting and important in our communities.
All right, well, Tri-County Farmers Co-op is an organization of farmers. It's a farmer-owned co-op. It was established in 1933. We used to have hundreds of members, and unfortunately, New Jersey grows very nice houses. So a lot of the land got built on. A lot of the farmers went out of business, died, retired, whatever. So we currently have about 35 to 40 active farmer members that come into Tri-County 3 times a week throughout the season. Doors open at 5:30 in the evening. You can come there to buy product. You can sell product. Become a member of Tri-County and sell if you like. We have a website you can order on. You can talk to our manager directly. You can talk to the farmers directly. It's a great avenue to buy product that you're not growing yourself. I don't think there's one farmer in this state that can grow everything and supply a market with everything that you're going to need for that market. It's impossible, okay? That's the Tri-County thing. I like to address the purchase product a little bit. I'm doing markets 30, 31 years now. Originally, it was grower-owned product. Then it got to be local product, which at that time was Jersey, New York, Delaware, Pennsylvania. Now it's just Jersey is local, okay? And then when COVID hit, I had market managers approach me and say, hey, can't you bring in other items that you don't grow? Like Oranges, mangoes, bananas, all of that. I'm like, well, I can, but that's kind of against the rules of the market that you had set. They say, yeah, but the people don't want to go to the supermarket. So we tried it. Separate table for tropicals. It went over fabulously. As long as you don't misrepresent the product. Peeling stickers, okay? Early season, people want red peppers. I have them on the stand with the stickers on them. They can see they're from wherever they're coming from. As long as you don't misrepresent, okay? Farmers need to supplement a lot of their income. It's just too hard to make money, okay? All right. When it comes to the finding a farmer's market, I guess I'm just in business for so long. I turn down 5 to 6 communities a year that call me to ask for a farmer. Well, there needs to be then, one, how did they get my number from another community somewhere? Or I need to have a list of farmers looking for markets. Or that list needs to be somewhere. So then I can call somebody in the state and say, hey, these communities looking for a farmer's market, they called me, turn them on to somebody.
Like a growers by county list.
Well, not even by county. By county, then, you know,
I would drive happily an hour and a half to North Jersey for a good market.
and that's most of my markets. I live in Millstone, that's Heightstown area. Most of my markets either down the shore or north of the Raritan River. That's where the money is. You want to go up north where they don't have an option up there. They don't have another farmer up there. There's no other farmer markets up there. I travel every day an hour on the turnpike. It's tough, but it's what you got to do. Okay, so there's just a couple things. If we had a list of farmers looking for markets, there could be a connection made, but we need to have that established.
I would very quickly like to just add to what George said and say that New Jersey is a very unique place to farm for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is Philadelphia right down here, New York City right up here, both of which are great places to sell, but everything in between is what's called suburban infill. And that's where all the people who work in those cities move to live. And there's a lot of money to be made in those places. In addition to that, we're very densely populated, like I said, but we also have a lot, much less now, but still a lot of farmland for that kind of population density, which means that farming in New Jersey is not a cutthroat business, right? So even though I might be in direct competition with somebody at one of my farmers markets, I'm still friends with that person. I'm friends with George. I'm friends with our other neighbors. We all talk to each other. We help each other out and support each other. So the goodwill and wherewithal for everybody to come together and make exactly what he's talking about happening, like, hey, I can't take on another market right now, but here's a list of people who might be able to fill that spot for you. That's there. It just needs to be coordinated by someone who isn't a farmer, because yes, they could, but craft, again, is extremely ad hoc. The way that craft communicates, and this is so archaic, it's all right. Craft is a collaborative regional alliance for farmer training. It's how, smaller farms connect with each other to offer, workshops on how tools work, like share systems, share information, share labor and equipment sometimes. It's very informal. There's a listserv that people just reply to. It's reply all to, but no, it's wonderful and it's a great community, but it's also run by farmers who are already wearing 40 other different hats. Yeah. But it's farmers who have to, a single farmer has to be a meteorologist, an automotive technician. They've got to have their hand in soil crop science. They've got to be a businessman. They've got to be able to use a computer. You've got to do a lot of stuff. You can't add another thing like that. And it's so, and again, on the other side, most farmers market managers are not paid for that. Most of them are doing it out of a labor of love, and because they want to be there and they have some other value from it, right? So there's all the pieces are there. It just kind of needs to be put together.
Chris, do you want to take a minute to respond to Bree's other question, and then we'll move on to the next one?
So
you have to know that in the 20 years that West Windsor's been around, there were no websites when we started, right? There was no Instagram, there was no Facebook. So, and we're at a train station parking lot, right? Not on a main road. So you have to look at farmers markets from where they come from, you know, and co-ops from where they come from. And these years of those of us who are these boots on the ground folks, like, so when you invest in a farmer to come and join your market and you take a chance and the farmer bails because it's not as busy as they thought it might be, you know, 20 years ago, it's like, that's all there was. So nobody bailed, you know, the bakers now, you know, everybody's got an attitude about, well, I can't go home with product. You know, well, that's not how it works. You know, you take a chance, you have to equally build your shopper base the same as we are in promoting you. So it's a two-way street in that. So, you know, we over the last few years, the only way that we really bring in new farmers is if one of our farmers leaves. So we had somebody that had left, and rather than bringing in one big grower, we opted to work with NOFA because we had two farmers that were working on their, I forget what it was called because Allison came in through that. It was like a mentorship program that NOFA does for newer, the journey person. So we ended up bringing in two smaller growers to substantiate that, both growing ethnic crops, which, you know, the West Windsor area is a very affluent area. We're SNAP authorized. We match up to $25 in the good food bucks. I mean, we really utilize our funding significantly. We pull a lot from Princeton University students as shoppers, and it's a very ethnically diverse community with food access issues just like any other town, and a lot from our school district as well. But so just speaking to that point about, you know, how can you get into a market, you know, somebody like Gabe, because I know him at this point, if a manager calls me and says, hey, I'm looking for a farmer, like, make friends with the other market managers. Like, if you're looking to get in a market and they say no to you, don't be an ass about it, you know, because they may use you as a reference somewhere. You know, I get that with a lot of outreach. I mean, I get, I don't know, 10 emails a week on, I sell this, I want to sell it at your market. And it's very demanding. It's not, hey, this is what I do. Here's my social media. Check me out. Do you have a place for me? It's, I want to sell at your market. That's it. So it's, what's the conversation? How can you, you know, will I want to send you to somebody if I don't have a place or I don't have a need for that item? But to George's point about, you know, all the markets that they do, there's an education piece around local food that is really missing in the food system. So I used to work at the Department of Agriculture in the Farm to School program, and we took that seasonality chart that the Farm Bureau had done, and we made it live links. So each crop item has, you know, a link to fun little resources about each produce item. But consumers don't really know what grows where, when, so they're looking for strawberries in December. But the question that the consumer really needs to be asking the farmer is this yours? Because that's a loaded question. Sure, it's mine. I went and picked it up and I trucked it out to my farm and I put it on my table. Of course it's mine. But did you grow this? Because if there's not a labeling component in the market structure, that's the difference. Is if there's labeling and you're obligated to label, you'll be very transparent that no, this isn't mine. I brought these in, I grow peppers, absolutely. I'm supplementing my crop until mine come into harvest. But in answer to the question about what we do at West Windsor, I don't actually know how to answer that question because I've been doing this a really long time. So it organically just happened. You know, I taught preschool. I was teaching kids about local food. Then I was doing cooking classes out of my house, and we were going in my garden and harvesting and making things. And then West Windsor was looking for a part-time manager. And I said, oh, yeah, okay, that sounds good. And I sort of took it on, and then from that, it all just has happened over the years. And it's only because I've been doing this for this long that I wear the hat of it. If I'm not mistaken, West Windsor was the first to go year round. That there was one market in 2006 maybe that Bo Child, who was a baker, his wife was the baker, said you guys should do a winter market, and there was one, and then it was three, and then when I came on there were five, and then I said, well, five, we should be doing 10, and we used to run them for the Slow Food Central Jersey chapter, which was sort of a defunct chapter. But we did them anyway. We did them outside of West Windsor. And I said, well, if I'm going to manage the market, I want them in West Windsor. So we found a space, and then we went to a mall, and then COVID hit, and then we were outside the mall. And then we moved back to our lot, and here we are. So.
Can I just ask Chris a quick follow-up question? Just a quick question. So do you find that the level of education of the consumer has increased in the years since? Because I teach, so I get the average New Jersey 18, 19-year-old like 60 to 100 per semester. And I don't see a difference between now and 2014.
I think you're probably right. I mean, I even in all the farm to school programs, it's also, it's how involved a family is and where food comes from. You know, so we get kids who come with their own little shopping lists to the market, and they write carrots or whatever, and they know food. But then there's, we're so accustomed to wanting what we want and getting it immediately, and this instant gratification of, a click away, I can have my groceries delivered. It doesn't matter where it grew or when it grew. I don't know. I don't think. Yeah, we have a long way to go in educating what grows in New Jersey, let alone when.
To add on to that, no. I'm telling you right now, a lot. Given some of the questions I get at farmers markets, absolutely not. People are totally clueless, and that's fine. That's why I'm there. But the answer is no.
Wait. So in my part-time, full-time role as doing sales for Zone 7, we do quite a lot of work with schools. So there's a lot of local food funding for New Jersey product in schools. And some of the food service management companies are really cooking, and they're really killing it. It's amazing to see. But we're getting food service directors who are saying, I'd like shredded lettuce and oranges, and it has to be New Jersey product. So field lettuce is done for the season. It's December. We did have it for a really long time, but there's no more field lettuce. Shredded lettuce, oranges, and so it's coming from the food service as well. So. It's not my job to say yes.
Hi, so I've called Zone 7 about 15 times this year and sent about 11 emails, and I never got one message back, one phone call back. Well, I'm with hi, my name is Juliana Likens. I'm the CSA manager at Fernbrook Farms.
I'm not supply of sales, so I don't onboard any of our farms.
So what's up? Why am I being ignored? The rejection, guys, the market rejection is unacceptable. We're all going to cry.
I just wanted to add something to think about. Yeah. Well, cool. So I wanted to add to build on that a little bit, to build on what George was saying about connecting people with other people who know people and can get you to the right person. One way that I get connected to a lot of stuff, the reason why I'm actually here today is someone gave my number to someone else. I would say to aspiring market managers and people running markets, find like larger organizations like NOFA, New Jersey, the Northeast Organic Farming Association of New Jersey, the Farm Bureau, the Tri-County Co-op. Get in touch with somebody who's in charge, like this guy, and ask them to put you in touch with someone else, because the New Jersey farming community, there's a lot of farmers in this state, but there aren't that many farmers in this state, and it's a relatively small state. So we're all like 1 or 2 degrees removed from each other. So that's a good way to get in touch with people. Like if you get in touch with, say, the executive director of NOFA, his name's Devin Cornea, he's going to be more than happy to put you in touch with somebody who's willing to come down and at least talk to you about like coming to your farmer's market. If you talk to someone at the Farm Bureau, anybody at the Farm Bureau, just call them up. They can put you in the ear of the right person or connect you to someone at the FSA who just knows people. And a lot of it happens, and I'm sorry, organically. But yes, in lieu of a centralized repository of information and contacts, that seems to me to be an effective way to at least get people's information and get talking to folks.
You want to stay involved. You have this meeting here, you meet a lot of people, you make a lot of connections, you talk to a lot of people. I'm first generation. I attended every meeting that I could, every convention in Atlantic City. I'm out in Hershey every year going to those talks. You want to make the connections and talk to people.
That's a really good point, and kind of shameless plug for the FDC too. Like,
Absolutely.
stay involved with the FDC. Like, there's a million grant opportunities I wouldn't know about. My suggestion for Danny down in Asbury Park, he just told me today he got money from HUD to supplement funding for their market. Like, that was an idea that I got from, like, I don't know, 2 degrees of separation. Somebody I met at the FDC who I met somewhere else and who dropped some information at some point in a meeting. And I said to Danny, why don't you go ask them?
Go to your local extension, go to your local Rutgers extension, talk to your agent, and ask if you can go to a Board of Ag meeting. Just go, yeah. No, you can just go. You can just go. Yeah, you can just go. I mean, like, me being who I am, I'm always gonna like call first and not just be like, hey, I'm some rando. But no, he's right. Just show up. Yeah, Monmouth County and Mercer for sure. I can talk about that.
Please come. I mean, you know what's going on then. All the different agencies give their reports. You know what's going on in the industry. You become part of the Board of Ag. Definitely, you got to attend all these meetings. Yeah, everything.
And at the very, very least, you will meet some farmers, and they can give you people's information. And the Board of Ag meetings generally happen Mercer County happens once a month, second Monday of the month, throughout the winter, and it's pauses during the season. But I know I'm on my Board of Ag, and I know that we would be more than happy to have you come out, no matter where you're from, what county you're from, come on out and talk to us. And now there is usually a virtual component. So you don't actually have to physically drive to Trenton necessarily if you're in Atlantic City or something. Like, you can just dial in.
We'll try to save a couple minutes for questions. We're just going to pose one last question to the panel because we're already running over, I think, or just about. So I know that we started to answer this question already, but one of the questions we had was what change would have the greatest positive impact on the way that farmers markets are currently run in New Jersey, in your view, and who would benefit from that? So if each of you could take a minute to respond to that, and then if there's time, Tracy, if you could just maybe speak on a little bit the sort of centralized farmers market network that you guys are running and have in New York City, and maybe some like opportunities for us in New Jersey to learn about that. So I'm going to give you an extra.
Do we want to just go in a line?
Yeah.
This.
You want to start out?
Oh, you want me to start? I think in general, just more education of the consumer and the community in general would make the farmers markets more valuable in their communities, and it would make the community stronger as a whole. It would make the farmer community stronger as a whole. It just comes back to education, but I don't know who's in charge of that because I can only do so much as the farmer. I do so much talking at a farmer's market. I don't know that I could do a lot more. But it has to come from every angle. So that's all I got.
Do you want me to answer afterwards?
The state needs this organization of farmers market managers, farmers, state people involved, everybody to come together and have an organization that could, if not set regulations, but help to train new managers. I know I've been at several different markets, some with very aggressive market managers or townships, and those markets succeed and do very well. Others that don't have, they have a no-show manager, they don't work. So that's important.
I concur 100% with George. Exactly what he said. If you have managers who don't show up or do show up but don't really show up and kind of half-ass the advertising and the community engagement, it just won't work, right? I would also like to add that organization needs to exist, and it also needs to involve municipal officials and municipal and county health and safety and food inspection stuff, because for a few reasons. One, because then nothing gets lost in translation. Two, it gets the municipality on board, and municipalities can be very difficult to deal with for some reason. I don't know why. Farmers markets are always a net positive, always, 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 always. And for some reason, some municipalities don't think that's the case. I'm sorry to say that a number of, with the changing rules around produce safety and the scale of farms and which farms are responsible for doing what, a lot of health and safety inspectors don't actually fully know what they're talking about, which can cause problems. If anybody wants further information about that, come see me after.
We need to have a universal health code for farmers markets in New Jersey.
It's the same. Like EMS protocols should be the same all over the country, and they're not. He's absolutely on the same page about that. And it's not that bad as a produce vendor, right? But if you're doing meat, eggs, cheese, any kind of dairy, whole other ball game. And yeah.
So I think so the outcomes that we were talking about when we were even planning for this session. So prior to COVID, there was a task force through the Department of Health at state level with Bill Manley, who has since retired, to update those Chapter 24 guidelines. And I think George was on that panel with me, that committee with me. And unfortunately, when COVID hit, the meeting sort of stopped, but it was sort of taking all of those guidelines that farmers markets have to go by, which are super antiquated. Frozen items are not even on there. Dairy is barely on there. Honey doesn't need a license, but now under the new cottage rule, it does. Oh, it got changed? Okay, so it did. Yeah, so I'm antiquated at this point. Thank you, Ashley. So part of, to George's point about standard health codes, like from the state level, an amazing outcome would be to finally update the Chapter 24 guidelines, which is what farmers markets are looking at. There is a definition of farmers markets on that guideline sheet, but I don't think anybody's looking at it, because really a community farmers market, there has to be more than one farmer, technically for a farmers market, and there has to be an actual farmer there. It's not just a distributor. And if it's not, don't call it a farmers market then. Food access, the food access piece of free distribution can't be called a farmers market because there's not a revenue stream going on there. So, there's so many layers to the onion, right? Every market is run so differently. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. Asbury Fresh is a for-profit that works around most of their makers. There are municipality-run markets that become line item budgets, which can very easily go away. So it's really hard to say what the right structure is, but I feel, like I said, being seriously a dinosaur in this room, it's kind of crazy but I guess, it's all from where you came. Really it's time for some version of some formalized something, just so that there's some kind of resource for all of us doing this work. I'm always happy to share my time, but it's definitely getting more and more limited. And, I want markets to succeed. I want to see other, young farmers getting out there and what we can do to help support it. Our market was founded, I think maybe to the question on how do we do it at West Windsor, our mission is to support New Jersey farmers. That's why we do what we do. It's not, community comes within there, engendering a healthy living. Supporting New Jersey farmers is the first tenet of what we do. And that's really, I think, what has set us apart for 20 years, because that's why we do it. And that's what I remember every single week when I'm writing a newsletter at 10 o'clock at night. And I think a big piece of this for the outcome is the sustainable Jersey part, that towns are getting silver certificates for having farmers markets, and they're popping up like there's just sprouting, and there's no infrastructure to what that looks like. And so if there's a way to talk to Sustainable Jersey on what that looks like if there's a neighboring town that may have a market. Is that enough to get your action? You know, is there something that you can table at that market to talk about your own economic development? But I mean, farmers markets are amazing economic drivers for communities and for our farmers. Do they now? Oh, that's huge. But I don't think every town knows that. Cool. Cool. I'll let Alex get a little. Oh, no, Tracy. Oh, Tracy, because I think she was going to talk about the.
Yeah, go ahead. Why don't you talk about and then Sophie, you have a question?
Yeah, so I'm trying to focus on what I think was useful for the conversation, because obviously New York City is a completely different animal. But I will say that in addition to GrowNYC, there are 2 other market operators. And I think it's really important, whether it's like within, you know, as part of a municipality or a separate nonprofit, to be, you know, set some public standards for what it means to be a market under this organization, that include, you know, requiring that farmers buy their own, you know, grow their own, having some commodity balance so that you don't have like 17 tomato growers and like one person doing, I don't know, apple cider, because that's not going to benefit your customers. And I think one of the things that we do that we do very poorly, but we still do it, is we have a farmer and consumer advisory committee that meets monthly and gives feedback to the Greenmarket staff on how the market should be running, because we make decisions that can affect a farmer's like entire monthly income. So we need to be able to, our farmers need to have a venue to give us input. Like I said, there's probably better models than how we're doing it, but I think that is really important. And things like commodity balance then become like major triggers for farmers if they're trying to get into a market and they can't get into a market. Or alternatively, like buying in product can become a really big frustration for a farmer who's lost a crop for whatever, you know, of the multitude of natural disasters that we are going to experience in greater amounts due to climate change. Like if they don't have that opportunity to buy something in to replace lost sales, that can be a challenge for farmers. So making sure that there are those flexibilities for farmers so that they can make their season work for them. And then we also have a lot of safety regulations that I think are, you know, important, but need to be created with farmer input, like around, you know, tent weights and like, whether your tent can stand up in like, you know, so-and-so mile per hour winds. So, and then the last thing I think is like making sure that like you are, like the advantage of, that we have as such a large market operator is being able to promote all of our markets and having like the, having the ability to get the word out about our markets, all of our markets, with the kind of social media footprint that we have. I think it's really important for market operators to do that. I don't know if I have anything more to add, or if happy to answer any questions.
So quick question. So as a representative of the Food Democracy Collaborative, as an intern who does work, I'd love to know, so I'm just basically clarifying what that last question was, which was perfect. So the things that the state or nonprofits or anyone can provide for farmers and farmers markets, just to clarify, would be some type of list so farmers know where they can sell and markets can find farmers that want to sell, right? That's part of it. Some type of centralized coalition for farmers markets would also be helpful, is what I'm hearing. Some type of streamlined rules that will probably come from the state regarding farmers markets, health and safety regulations, and also maybe like a list of grants and other things like other networking opportunities. Did I miss anything? Do we feel like that's clear?
I would say the first thing that would be the easiest to actually get done would just be compile a list of people who are in charge of organizations that deal with farmers, because that's a short list relatively, and that already kind of, those networks already kind of exist. But yeah, I can agree. Craft, NOFA, the Farm Bureau, a select few people at USDA.
So I'm from Farm Bureau, and just to go off of what Gabe's saying, there are exactly what you're saying is not out there, but Farm Bureau has lists already. The department has lists already, so we don't need to reinvent the wheel here and start from scratch on a lot of this. I think a lot of it just is collaboration.
And then with the lists, I mean, it would be helpful to know what markets are looking for what kind of vendors. I mean, I'm a vegetable farmer, and we're always wondering, like, where is there a market that's opening up in front of us, and is it worth the squeeze for our business? What's up, Gabe?
That's what I mean. Just like,
I mean, the list was about like the farms on the list. It would be great to have, both ways, and then you have an. We're all pro lists.
When you're at the NOFA conference and there's that, whiteboard that has it's getting market managers to attend the vegetables growers convention. It's getting market managers to go to the NOFA conference because I'm there. I'll go. But it puts it out there to be like, this is where you can find that.
I'm wondering, what is the capacity of farmers markets collectively to handle production from new growers? What kind of percentage rate capacity could be absorbed at farmers markets? 5%, 10%, 50%? Or is it pretty static? Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm just wondering, to what extent are farmers markets possibly the answer? I know that CSA, which is what I did, it kind of flattened out and kind of died out. And what? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
If you're getting income from farmers markets, wholesale, cooperative sales, and CSA, maybe that's too complicated. I don't know. But for me, that's what allowed me to stay in business during COVID, was the fact that I was able to be flexible and pivot, which is a word I learned.
Oh, thank you.
I think also just real quick to bring it back to another point that really should be on the list too that Chris brought up at the beginning is funding, like sustainable funding for farmers markets, because if you want us to be able to go to those conferences, which we all do, most of us don't work in the winter too. If that's the only thing we're working on, we don't have any funding left over at the end of the season to do any kind of educational, like team building, any kind of things like that, and unless you're a really big farmers market. Exactly. Right, exactly. If you're going to support farmers, maybe one of the ways that you do that is you support sustainable markets.
The state needs to do a better job supporting farmers, but that's always been the case.
Yes.
Like that's the best way to do. We could look at every source of grants in the state, and that'll be like 3 dozen websites and different forms that you guys have to fill out. Like I can't imagine being a farmer and having the time to find all of those resources.
We don't.
Yes. No, don't you worry. And do the survey.
Any more questions? Are we at time? We've
been over time.
We're over. All right. If any, I'll be around for a couple seconds if anybody has any more questions. So.
Thank you so much. Thank you.